David, step over here, please.
Excuse me, what is this about?
The $647,000 you ran through the department credit card and accounts.
This is David Roy McBean, the chief of the Intercanyon Fire Protection District in Colorado. He spent years asking this community to trust him with their safety, and used that trust to steal $351 that was supposed to buy life-saving equipment.
I have given
shopping.
everything to this department. As chief, I would never steal from my own.
$42,000 in 1 month alone. Electronics, musical equipment.
He would not get the second chance. Within 90 days of that confrontation on his front porch, Jefferson County financial fraud detectives would seize the credit card statements, the bank records, and a 6-year paper trail that ended in a number nobody could explain away: $647,351.59, drained from a volunteer fire department that protects 4,200 mountain residents in the foothills west of Denver. Money that should have bought thermal imaging cameras, rescue rope, defibrillators, oxygen tanks, replacement turnout gear. Money that bought guitars, computers, and one online shopping month that cost $42,000 by itself. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. Have you ever served on a volunteer board or worked under one, where a single person held every key and every signature? Drop a comment and tell me what you saw. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. We hold authority figures accountable on this channel every single week, and this case is one you'll be thinking about for a while. David Roy McBean was born in 1981 in Lakewood, Colorado, the second son of a city public works foreman and a part-time bookkeeper for a local Methodist church. The family lived in a small ranch home on Iris Street, 3 blocks from the elementary school, and they were not poor, but they were not comfortable. His father wore the same brown work coat every winter for 11 years. His mother counted the coupons at the kitchen table on Sunday nights. David was the kid who chased the trucks. Lakewood firefighters who worked Station 4 in the late 1980s would later remember a brown-haired boy on a yellow banana seat bicycle who would pedal alongside the engine when it pulled out of the bay, waving until they turned the corner on West Alameda Avenue. He owned a red plastic Tonka pumper with a missing rear wheel that his mother had bought secondhand at a yard sale on Garrison Street. He slept with it on the pillow next to his head until he was 9 years old. He went to Bear Creek High School and was, by every account given to investigators years later, unremarkable. C average. Did not play sports. Joined the school's volunteer service club because his mother insisted, and stayed in it for 3 full years because he discovered something about himself there. He liked being needed. He liked the orange safety vest. He liked the way adults treated him differently when he was the one helping them, instead of the other way around. He graduated in 1999. There was no college fund. His father had been laid off in 1997 when the city restructured its public works contracts, and the McBean family was, by then, 2 months behind on the mortgage. David took a job at a Home Depot on Wadsworth Boulevard, stocking the plumbing aisle for $9.75 an hour, and he submitted his application to the Volunteer Fire Academy in Intercanyon almost the same week he received his diploma. Intercanyon Fire Protection District covers 94 square miles of mountainous terrain south and west of Golden, Colorado. The Foxton Burn Scar, Reynolds Park, the narrow switchbacks of South Turkey Creek Road. It is one of the larger volunteer districts in Jefferson County, and in 1999 it was always hungry for warm bodies. David passed the basic firefighter course in 8 months. He bought his own boots with 3 paychecks. He drove 62 miles round trip from Lakewood to attend drills at the Station 1 Bay off Pleasant Park Road, and his evaluators wrote that he was, quote, eager to serve, with a strong work ethic and a calm presence under stress. He moved to Conifer in 2003. He met his wife, Andrea, at a community pancake breakfast that the department threw every spring on the Intercanyon grounds. She was a hospice nurse with 2 kids from a first marriage, ages 4 and 6. David proposed at the same breakfast the following year, in front of half the department, on one knee in front of a folding table covered in plastic syrup pitchers. He was 23 years old. The volunteers cheered for 90 seconds. Andrea cried. She said yes. His career inside the volunteer department moved in clean, visible steps. Engineer in 2005, lieutenant in 2008, captain in 2012, assistant chief in 2015. He was elected chief by the volunteer board in June of 2017, the youngest in district history, at the age of 35. The vote was unanimous. Lawrence Helmick, the board's 71-year-old treasurer, hugged him in the parking lot after the meeting and told him he had earned this. Inside the firehouse, the volunteers called him Mac. He was the one who stayed late after drills to mop the bay floor. He was the one who answered his cell phone at 3 in the morning when a brush truck broke down on a back road. He was the one who personally visited every district household that had lost a structure to the 2019 Cabin Creek fire, sitting on porches that no longer had houses behind them, taking notes on a clipboard, promising follow-up. Therefore, he was the one no one in the district ever thought to question. His wife told a friend in the summer of 2018 that David had finally found the thing he was meant to do. She would say the same sentence again, almost word for word, on the witness stand 5 years later. Only by then she would be crying, and the room she was sitting in would be a courtroom. Intercanyon Fire Protection District is not a city fire department. It is a special tax district, governed by a 5-member elected board of community volunteers, funded primarily by a mill levy approved by district residents in 2004 and renewed in 2014. The district takes in roughly $1.4 million a year in property tax revenue, plus state and federal grants, plus private donations, plus the modest proceeds of the annual community pancake breakfast. It owns 4 engines, 2 brush trucks, 1 water tender, and a 1995 ambulance that should have been replaced in 2011. It has 1 paid administrative position and 57 active volunteers. Everyone else, including the chief, serves without salary. The chief, by district bylaws, has signing authority over the operations account. He holds the department's only Chase Business credit card. He is the only person, other than the elected treasurer, who can authorize purchases above $1,000 without a board vote. He receives the bank statements at his home address. He produces the monthly financial summary that is read aloud at the public board meeting on the 2nd Tuesday of every month. The treasurer in 2017, when David McBean took the chief's chair, was Lawrence Helmick. Helmick had served on the board for 22 years. He trusted David completely. He had voted for him. He had hugged him after the vote. Helmick did not own a computer. He reviewed the monthly summary by listening as David read it aloud at the meeting. He never asked to see the underlying statements. No one on the board did. The full audit, technically required every 3 years under state statute for special districts of this size, had not been formally conducted in Intercanyon since 2013. The board kept meaning to schedule one. There was always something more urgent: a grant application, a brush truck repair, a funeral. This is how it was supposed to work. The chief was a volunteer, donating his time. The board was a group of volunteers, donating their time. The community was a community. People who had known each other for 20 years did not demand receipts from people they had known for 20 years. The system ran on trust because the system was built by people who had nothing but trust to give. David McBean understood that perfectly. He had been raised inside it. He had watched it from the outside, then served inside it, then climbed inside it, for almost 20 years. He understood exactly where the gaps were, because the gaps had been left open by people who believed no one in their own house would ever exploit them. He was wrong about that, and he was the proof. The first charge to the district credit card that investigators were later able to definitively flag as personal was made on August 14, 2017, 10 weeks after David McBean was sworn in as chief. It was a Best Buy purchase in Lakewood, $389.16. A pair of bookshelf speakers, and a Blu-ray player. The receipt was never submitted to the treasurer. The line item on the monthly summary appeared under the heading, Station 1 Audio-Visual Upgrades. There was no audio-visual upgrade at Station 1. The speakers went home with David. The Blu-ray player went into a cabinet in his finished basement on Highland Drive. Investigators would later call this the test. A small amount, a plausible cover, a category vague enough to absorb it. No one questioned it. No one noticed. No one checked. Therefore, he did it again. In September of 2017, he charged $600 at Guitar Center in Englewood, a Fender Stratocaster electric guitar and a small Marshall practice amplifier. On the monthly summary, it appeared under community outreach materials. In October, $1,200 at Best Buy, a new laptop, logged as administrative software upgrade. In November, $440 at Sweetwater Sound, a music supply retailer based in Indiana, studio monitors and a USB microphone, logged as training video production equipment. By the end of December 2017, 5 months into his tenure, David McBean had moved approximately $14,000 of district funds into personal electronics, music equipment, and home computing gear. None of it ever entered the firehouse. The volunteer firefighters of Intercanyon were, in those same 5 months, told there was no budget for new SCBA bottles. The methodology that grew from there was almost simple. He used the Chase business card for every purchase. He retrieved the paper statements from his home mailbox before his wife saw them. He maintained 2 separate Excel spreadsheets on his personal laptop. One was the real ledger, in plain English, for himself. The other was the cover ledger, with fabricated categories, for the board. He read the cover ledger aloud at meetings. He shredded printed pages of the real ledger quarterly. He kept only the current quarter on his laptop, which was, of course, also paid for with district money. The escalation was steady. $20,000 in his second year, $54,000 in his third, $97,000 in his fourth. He moved from electronics into instruments, into recording equipment, into a home theater system installed by a contractor in Evergreen who billed the work, at David's instruction, as backup generator maintenance services for emergency operations. The contractor was never charged. He had no reason to suspect anything. He cashed the check and went home. In the basement on Highland Drive, there was, by the spring of 2021, a recording studio with $11,000 of acoustic treatment, 3 professional-grade microphones, a 32-channel digital mixing console, and 7 electric guitars hanging from a custom-built rack along the south wall. There were 2 75-inch flat-panel televisions. There was a wine refrigerator that had been billed to the district as a medical sample storage unit. His wife thought he had inherited money. He had told her, vaguely, that his grandmother's estate had finally settled, that there had been some life insurance, that there had been a quiet uncle in Arizona. She did not press him. She was a hospice nurse. She knew what grief did to money. She knew people did not always want to talk about it. David McBean was, in the same season, the chief of a volunteer fire department that in 2022 deferred the purchase of 3 sets of replacement turnout gear because the budget would not support it. Volunteer firefighters wore coats that had failed the annual NFPA inspection because the district could not afford new ones. He read the deferral aloud at the November board meeting. His voice did not change. The month that ended, it was March of 2023. Something changed in him that month. Investigators were never able to determine exactly what. A divorce hint, a medical fear, a psychological pressure that finally cracked. What they could determine from the Chase statement was that across 31 days, David McBean made 104 separate charges to the district credit card, totaling $42,183.77 in a single month, from a single card, from a fire department that took in about $117,000 in total revenue across the same 31 days. The purchases were not coherent. A $3,000 mandolin from a luthier in Nashville, a $2,000 pair of headphones, a $4,000 espresso machine, a consumer drone, 2 additional electric guitars, a vintage tube amplifier from a private seller in California, $900 in vinyl records from a single online shop in Brooklyn, a pair of custom cowboy boots from a maker in Texas, $840, a new MacBook Pro, a second new MacBook Pro 3 days later, a drum machine, a modular synthesizer, an $1,100 bottle of single malt scotch. The shipping addresses were not even consistent. Some went to Highland Drive. Some went to a P.O. box he had opened in Conifer in 2019 under the name DR Service Holdings. Some went to the firehouse, where he intercepted them in the front office before the on-shift volunteers saw the labels. The April statement landed in his mailbox on the morning of April 14, 2023. He took it inside. He opened it at the kitchen table. He looked at the total. And then he did the thing he had never done in 6 years. He missed. He left the statement briefly on the kitchen counter while he went to the basement to retrieve a different folder. His wife, Andrea, came home from a shift at the hospice. She picked up the mail to sort it. She read the line he had not yet altered on the cover ledger spreadsheet that was open on his laptop beside the statement. She did not confront him. Not that day. She photographed 3 pages of the statement with her phone, returned the envelope to where he had left it, drove to the public library in Conifer, and printed her own copies. Then she called her older brother, who was a CPA in Denver. Her brother told her, after 20 minutes of looking, to call the sheriff. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office Financial Crimes Unit opened the file on April 26, 2023. The lead investigator was Detective Carla Reinhardt, 14 years on the job, 6 in financial fraud. She had run an embezzlement case against a school district treasurer in 2019 that had taken 19 months to build. She told her sergeant, after reading the first 3 pages of Andrea McBean's printout, that this one would not take 19 months. The Chase business card statements were obtained by court order on May 3rd. The district's operating account records came in on May 10th. Reinhardt and a forensic accountant assigned from the district attorney's office, a man named Stephen Park, sat in a 3rd-floor conference room of the Jefferson County Government Building in Golden and built a spreadsheet that, when it was finally finished in late August, ran to 491 rows. Every row was a charge. Every row had a date, a vendor, an amount, a cover category from David's board ledger, and a forensic determination of whether the purchase had any plausible connection to the operations of a fire department. The plausible connections, after 4 months of work, came to less than 9% of total charges. The smoking gun was not the Chase statements. The Chase statements were the roadmap. The smoking gun was a single document recovered from David McBean's home laptop on the morning of the search warrant, August 22, 2023. The document was an Excel file titled, in his own keystrokes, Real Ledger, 2022, XLSX. It listed every personal purchase in his own hand in plain English. Column A was the date. Column B was the vendor. Column C was the item description with no euphemism. Fender Telecaster. Marshall Stack Amp. MacBook Air, second one. Column D was the dollar amount. Column E was the cover category he intended to apply at the next board meeting. There were 3,184 rows. He had been keeping the receipts of his own theft for 6 years. Not because he forgot to delete them, because he wanted to know, for himself, what he had taken. Because part of him, investigators believed, had needed the count. The total restitution figure, when Park finished his work, came to $647,351.59. The cents mattered. They came from a single 60-cent charge that David had run through the card on a Diet Coke at a King Soopers in Aspen Park during a department training day in 2020. He had logged it in Real Ledger 2022 as personal beverage. He had not even bothered to fake it. The detectives drove out to Highland Drive on the morning of September 11th, 2023. We're heading into the confrontation now. If you've made it this far, you already know this channel doesn't let stories like this disappear quietly. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and share this with someone who needs to see what happens when a volunteer board stops asking questions. The way this man explained himself to the detectives is something I still can't fully shake, and the sentencing at the end is going to surprise you. It was a Monday, 7:43 in the morning. David McBean answered the door in a gray t-shirt and gym shorts, holding a black coffee mug. He looked at the badges. He looked at the search warrant. He looked at the unmarked Crown Victoria parked behind Detective Reinhardt's vehicle in his own driveway. He said one sentence. He said, "I knew you were coming eventually." He waived his right to counsel in the kitchen of his own house at 8:06 a.m. He sat at the kitchen table where his wife had photographed the statement 5 months earlier. Detective Reinhardt set a digital recorder between them. The transcript runs 41 pages. The first half is procedural. The card numbers, the categories, the contractor in Evergreen, the P.O. box. He answers every question. He does not deflect. When Reinhardt asks him about the Best Buy charge in August of 2017, he tells her, without being prompted, that it was bookshelf speakers and a Blu-ray player. He remembers it. He remembers all of them. Then, on page 27 of the transcript, Reinhardt asks him the question that the rest of the interview turns on. She asks him why. He does not answer for 41 seconds. The recording captures the kitchen clock ticking, a dog barking 3 houses down. Then he says, and this is verbatim from the transcript, David McBean, "I have a problem. I think I have a shopping problem. I don't know when it started. I would order things at night and feel better. Then in the morning, I would feel sick. Then I would order more things to feel better again. I knew the money was supposed to buy a thermal camera. I knew the money was supposed to buy gear. I knew every time. I just couldn't stop." Reinhardt asks him if he understands what the money was supposed to do. David McBean, "It was supposed to save somebody's life." He does not say anything else for the rest of the interview. He asks for a lawyer at 8:49 a.m. The recording ends. David Roy McBean was indicted on October 19, 2023, by a Jefferson County grand jury on 5 counts. 2 counts of theft of greater than $20,000, a Class 3 felony in Colorado. 1 count of embezzlement of public funds. 1 count of cybercrime related to the falsified ledger spreadsheets. 1 count of forgery of a government instrument related to the falsified board reports. His defense attorney, a Denver criminal defense lawyer named Sarah Whitten Boyle, did not contest the underlying facts. The Chase statements were unimpeachable. The real ledger file was unimpeachable. The recorded confession in his own kitchen, given after a clean Miranda warning, was unimpeachable. She negotiated a plea instead. In March of 2024, in front of Jefferson County District Court Judge Margaret Vassallo, David McBean pleaded guilty to both counts of theft greater than $20,000 and the single count of embezzlement. The cybercrime and forgery counts were dismissed. Restitution was stipulated at $647,351.59. Sentencing was scheduled for May 14, 2024. The courtroom that day held more volunteer firefighters than the Intercanyon District had ever managed to assemble in any single place at any single time in its history. Engineer Tom Velasquez, who had run a brush truck under McBean for 9 years, gave a victim impact statement in which he held up a 2019 turnout coat with a torn cuff and a failed NFPA inspection tag still stapled to the collar. He said, into the microphone, that he had worn that coat into the Cabin Creek fire because the district could not afford a replacement, and that David McBean had told him personally in October of 2019 that the budget would not support a new one. David McBean had spent $41,000 on guitars that same month. Andrea McBean spoke also. She told the court that she had loved her husband for 19 years. She told the court that she did not know the man who had done this. She told the court that she had filed for divorce on August 23, 2023, the day after the search warrant, and that the divorce had finalized 2 weeks before sentencing. She did not cry until the end. The end of her statement was the sentence she had said to her friend in 2018, that David had finally found the thing he was meant to do. Lawrence Helmick, the 71-year-old treasurer who had hugged David in the parking lot the night he was elected, did not speak. He had resigned from the board in October of 2023. He sat in the 3rd row of the public gallery in a tan cardigan and did not look up. Judge Vassallo's sentencing statement ran 4 minutes. She said the case before her was not a case of a man who needed money. It was a case of a man who had been given the trust of a mountain community that protected itself with its own neighbors, and who had used that trust to fund a private appetite while sending those same neighbors into structure fires and failing equipment. She said the court could not measure the harm in dollars, because the dollars were not the worst of it. The worst of it, she said, was the next fire that would happen in Intercanyon, and the volunteer who would respond to it knowing what their chief had done with the money that was supposed to keep them alive. She sentenced him to 8 years in the Colorado Department of Corrections, 2 consecutive sentences of 4 years on the theft counts. The embezzlement count ran concurrent. David Roy McBean was processed into the Buena Vista Correctional Complex on June 3, 2024. He is currently incarcerated at a medium security facility in central Colorado. His earliest parole eligibility date is in 2028. He is paid, as of the most recent restitution hearing, $1,140 toward the $647,000 he owes the district. The Intercanyon Fire Protection District has, since his arrest, conducted 3 full external audits. It has replaced 11 sets of turnout gear. It has installed 2 new thermal imaging cameras at Station 1, paid for through a Jefferson County recovery grant. It has rewritten its bylaws to require 2 signatures on any single purchase above $500. The 1995 ambulance is still in service. The board is still trying to find the money for a new one. That case was devastating. But the next case on the right-hand side of your screen is one I genuinely struggled to publish. Click it now.